Welcome to the Great Awakening Ministry. I am Minister and Yogini Joanne Lee, and on this week's show we have Nidhi Bhanshall Pandya. Nidhi is a certified Ayurvedic doctor, known for her modern approach. She was raised in India and was immersed in Vedic wisdom from birth, drawing inspiration from her grandfather, a respected Ayurvedic healer. Her journey led to her formal education in holistic health. However, Nidhi soon realized the limitations of a strictly prescriptive approach to health. This insight spurred her to reinterpret Ayurveda through a transformative lens, making ancient knowledge accessible and relevant in today's world. Nidhi is a faculty member at Shakti School of Ayurveda and offers Ayurvedic nutrition courses on onecommune.com, video platform with over 3.5 billion views on TikTok. She has written for Ayurvedic and Health Tourism and mindbodygreen.com and speaks at major corporations like Google. She has amassed over 180,000 followers on Instagram and has featured in Vogue, Allure, and Harper's Bazaar. Her book, Your Body Already Knows, Intuitive Ayurveda, 21 Days to Rest Your Gut, Hormones, Sleep, and Mood, gives a groundbreaking approach to health that merges ancient wisdom and modern science and represents the essence of her 15 years of dedicated practice and deep understanding of Ayurvedic principles.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
So, Nidhi, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the Great Awakening show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanne. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Yes. Ayurveda. Wow. And you're going to tell us all about it and all about your beautiful book. And to begin with, for our audience who might not know, please tell us about, the ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine. What is it and what are its benefits?
Beautiful, yeah. So Ayurveda literally translates into the science of life. Ayu means life and Veda means science. So it is most commonly known as an ancient holistic health system, but it's a very holistic system. And being the science of life and the sister science of yoga, because they both come from the larger system of the Vedas, it has a very large scope. So it's not only, while most people think of it as medicine and treatment of conditions, it's prevention of disease, it's treatment, it's nutrition, lifestyle, fertility, childcare, social conduct, mental health. If it has to do with human life, Joanne, Ayurveda covers it.
Wow.
And a lot of the current trends, modern day health trends, actually have their origins in Ayurveda, whether it's turmeric, ashwagandha, oil pulling, dry scrubbing, intermittent fasting. It really teaches you, it understands the rhythms and the patterns of the human body, whether it's the vibration of a cell, whether it's the heartbeat, whether it is your breath. It understands the rhythms and the patterns of the universe, the day and the night, the seasons, the rotation, everything that's happening outside, the migrations, all of it. And it understands the connection, right? I mean, everything is a rhythm in this universe. When you go off rhythm, you invite disease. So it understands these rhythms and patterns, their connections with each other, and how to bring them back into balance. So it is a very deep, a very large, and a very profound science.
Wow. It's quite mystical as well, isn't it? Because you're bringing into, it treats the body like mind, body, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, it's spiritual. It's beautiful. And I think that's what the world needs. We've been only treating the physical symptoms and not the body on all these different, mentally, physically. and spiritually is so important. There's always a spiritual, need, that could be causing, and they integrate and connect with each other, don't they?
Absolutely. This is a great time for me to say that what would differentiate me from my wax museum, right? Let's say you had a wax museum of me, and what differentiates me in my wax museum is that spirit. And the spirit brings those rhythm patterns into the body, that heartbeat. Like when a human being dies, they leave these rhythms, they leave their heartbeat. There is no breath, there is no pulse, there is, all of this, you become inanimate. So essentially just treating the physical body is treating that part of us, which is our hardware. Behind this hardware, there are multiple layers of software which go into the making of a human life. And Joanne, you probably and the listeners may know about the 5 sheets of existence, but at some point maybe we can talk about them, because our physical sheet, which is in the 3D world,
You mean the energy bodies? We call them
yes,
energy
the
bodies,
koshas.
physical,
Yes.
and talk about them. That's great because people don't understand much about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have started believing that we're just this physical body made of these 5 senses and flesh and skin. But we know that something behind us is a breath, so there are 5 bodies, and I'm going to go through each one really quickly. But we know that there's a breath beneath that physical body. That's the second body, is the breath body, the pranamaya kosha. And it's okay for people who are listening to this to never remember jargon, because you want to understand what these really are. And the breath is significant, right? Because we know that the minute we have an emotional response, our breath changes. You're in a car accident, your breath changes. You're super relaxed, you're relaxing in your jacuzzi, your breath changes. So your breath is really this deep connection into something deeper that we now call as maybe a parasympathetic nervous system or a sympathetic nervous system. So that breath body is a big bridge between the first physical and the third body, which is your mental body, the mind body. And in this manomaya kosha, the mind body, is where your thoughts reside. And the minute your thought changes, your breath changes, and your physical body will change, because they all borrow from each other. And also now what we've started recognizing in the Western world is, mental health. Look, there is mental health that comes into place. Anyways, we don't know how to, honestly, Joanne, yoga does, but we don't know how to use the breath to bridge this gap between the physical and the mental body. So we just try to change behaviors through our mind. Very, very difficult. But after this mind body, this mental body is emotional body,
Yeah.
knowing body, Jnanamaya kosha, is what we know beneath the information, behind the mind, right? Animals that don't have the intellect also have the Jnanamaya kosha, the knowledge body, the knowing body, the emotional body, emotional responses. Like the deer, my running joke is that the deer doesn't wake up in the morning complaining about, I have to wake up early to graze tomorrow. The deer just does. So it's that knowing body, all the connection. The baby is born eating from its mother's breast. And that knowing body is really where our wisdom resides. And when we can align the physical body, the breath body, the mind body, the knowing body, we have access to this last body, which is called the bliss body, which is called the dissolution body, the Anandamaya kosha. And in that,
Is that the spiritual body, isn't it?
Yeah.
The soul, the spiritual.
There, basically, there's perfect coherence. There's coherence in your mind, and your thoughts are processed, and your feelings are processed, and your physical body is at ease, and your breath is regulated. And when you have that state, you have access to this deep wisdom that connects you. You dissolve in the oneness of the universe. And all spiritual traditional systems wanted to find a way back to the spiritual body, and for us to reside there in that consciousness and that deep consciousness with that coherence, rather than existing in this physical world. And so Ayurveda and yoga understand all of these 5 bodies and seek to work on all of them. And in spite of that, right, what's remarkable about Ayurveda is it supports the physical body in so many ways, which you would think that you're just doing. When people go to yoga class, for example, Joanne, they think, and yoga is a sister science of Ayurveda, so it's not Ayurveda, but when people go to yoga class, they're like, oh, I'll go to Pilates, or maybe I'll go to yoga. And then they find themselves in yoga. And then they see that, oh my God, I'm doing the same postures technically, but I'm feeling so relaxed. Something changed here. Because even though you may be doing asana, let's say you go to a class where you're never doing pranayam, But because you're still using the breath in your exercise, or yoga asana, you have gone to that second body. And the minute you go deeper into another realm, your body starts to get more relaxed. So yoga understands this really well. I mean, Ayurveda has tons of so-called physical practices in the physical body that actually support your all the five bodies.
Yeah. And then you've got the meditation part of yoga as well, which like Pilates and everything. Pilates is just exercise, but yoga is a complete spiritual, holistic discipline, you know, a union, isn't it? And that's really amazing that you said about the different bodies, because, you know, we believe that in the energy system, the subtle energy system, because these bodies are our aura, aren't they? They make up the aura of the human body. And when the aura, the spiritual energy body, is out of balance or there's a problem, then that will manifest in the physical body.
Absolutely, absolutely. That'll manifest in the physical body and the other way around as well, right? That not physical, but if there is a lack of coherence in your thoughts, if there's a lack of coherence in your knowing, if your mind and knowing if your information and wisdom are disconnected, your beliefs and actions are disconnected, you're living in incoherence. And then in that incoherence, your electromagnetic field and your aura changes. And then when your aura changes, in fact, you know, Joanne, in Ayurveda, right, in the ancient scriptures, the first very sutra or the verse with which this textbook starts, this profound textbook with how do you eat? How do millets respond in your body? How does rice respond in your body? How does anything respond in your body? It starts with saying that the minute you lose your equilibrium and you deviate from your emotional steadiness, you get into greed, you get into anger, you get into insecurity, you get into fear, your body gets restless, your biochemistry changes. In that biochemistry changing, you begin to create disease, not only because your chemistry changes and then your biology changes, but also because you start to take action that will create disease. For example, some
the wrong action.
Pradnya like and action against wisdom, basically, that you know when you're eating that extra bag of chips. We know when we're sitting and watching that one extra show because I'm like, oh, I'm so uninspired to go to bed and I'm so uninspired to wake up in the morning. So the minute you lose that inspiration for life, that equilibrium within, and your deviation happens, you start creating the causes for disease. So it is so important. This entire textbook with such profound wisdom for all your five bodies starts with this.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. You explained that so well. It's so beautiful. And please tell us about your book, Your Body Already Knows, and how the most important thing about this book is teaching us that we have the wisdom within, and we can use this wisdom within to heal ourselves. And this is what this Great Awakening that I think the world is fastening up in, this Great Awakening, that it's so important. You know, we don't need to keep going to normal doctors. We can use the wisdom within if we have the right conditions to heal thyself, know thyself.
Absolutely. And thank you for doing all that you do, Joanne, with the Great Awakening show, to give people this wisdom and insight and this empowering them, right? And that's exactly why I wrote this book. I am an Ayurvedic doctor, and I was tired of the system. Even Ayurveda was practiced very academically, which means that, and prescriptively, which means people came to a doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor, and said, hey, just write me some herbs and a holistic nutrition plan. But it's always empowering your wellness to somebody else. The confusion of how much turmeric should I take? Can you give me a khichdi recipe? But I'll tell you, right, Joanne, and I go back to what I just said. I go back, which is my running joke. Or like my running away, running like, hey, wake up, is that deer does not wake up in the morning complaining that I have to wake up again and graze. The deer knows that it's going to pass on meat and it's going to eat the grass. A tiger will not get carried away because there's a new study that you have high brainwave frequency patterns in the morning. The tiger knows it's nocturnal. It knows when to hunt, and it knows how to hunt and who to hunt. I have seen bears myself right before hibernation devour on cabbage heads before they eat anything else, because they know that once they go into the great hibernation, when they wake up, they want to have a bowel movement. Animals that are nursing know exactly what to eat so that they can nurse better. There's a galactago, what plants. And animals that sick, you'll see a dog that's wounded and, out there in the wild knows where to rub their body on, what soil to rub their body on. So fish can swim on the bed of the ocean and pass on what they're not going to eat. How can we forget how we're meant to live? How can we outsource how we're meant to, what should we eat when we're nursing? When should we wake up? When should we sleep? We're the most intelligent species on the planet. And our intellect, which made us intelligent, the mind, is now exactly, which is crippling us. It's made us handicapped. But it's not supposed to be like that. When we were born, we knew that we had to eat from our mother's breast without ever having to use our mouth before in utero, without ever seeing a breast before. We're born with that wisdom. And somewhere along the way, we over intellectualize everything and we just in this world of excessive information on the outside, the wisdom on the inside is lost.
Yes, right.
Because I was so tired of that and I felt so helpless seeing all thousands of women that I worked with in the last 20 years, I've seen them just so disempowered. I wanted to create a framework that brings you back to your wisdom. And that's exactly what this book does.
That is absolutely beautiful because, to go within, and that's why, we've come away. I believe that we're so, into our bodies, into our lives, into the 3D out there. People don't want to go within. They don't want to stop their mental thoughts and just be and just have that, connection with their higher self within, which gives you all of the information you ever wanted. It's the intuition, it's divine intelligence. It comes from source, it comes from God. It's that connection that we're all missing. And that's the holistic, key, the secret, the secret is to find that connection again. And then you open the channel to heal thyself. It's just amazing if you have the right environment as well. So tell us a little bit about the environment. That's really important.
And Joanne, environment and the right framework. Because when you have the right framework within, you know what to filter through. Like I live in New York City, Joanne. I have 2 teenage daughters that go to school here.
Yeah.
And I grew up with Ayurveda and my daughters grew up with Ayurveda. And I know that if you have the right framework, and Ayurveda can be done in many different ways. If you have the correct framework, you can be out there anywhere in the world. And you know that your North Star is within, your compass of guiding you, of what to filter out is within. It's like going to a really, really noisy mall, like bazaar, with like all of these vendors and all of these stores, and people are selling you stuff. But if you know what you're out there for, what are you out there to buy? Everything else is background noise. You can have your headphones on and go through that bazaar and that noisy mall, and you can be completely fine. And honestly, we should all be living life like that, especially today. We need that framework within so much more than we ever did before. And I see that with my daughters as well. Like they have that, they're developing that framework within because they're being raised within this wisdom.
Yes. That's so beautiful. It's like that balance, that wholeness that we're all craving. We come from the oneness, come down into the duality, the separation. We have to find that wholeness again within us, which is that's our North Star. That's our calm place, isn't it? Where nothing can touch us on the outside. No one can ever force us to feel or to react. It's up to us to stay in that beautiful place. And that's why Ayurveda is so important, isn't it? It's so important for that. And also the connection with nature. Because I was going to say about the oneness. The oneness, Ayurveda talks about the interconnectedness and oneness with all things. And the connectedness of, the individual with the natural world, which I think we've all lost as well a little bit.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Joanne, you're absolutely right. But it sounds like a mammoth task, right? Because people are like, what does that even mean? I have never felt one. I have never felt whole with myself, forget feeling whole with the whole universe, right? People are like, I've not even felt one with my spouse or with my children. We're all broken, right? So what is really needed at this point, more than any other time in history, Joanne, is a framework, is kindness to ourselves, is a kind approach, a gentle approach. And like in my book, what I do is I give a framework that how do you start making this journey way back home. And then I offer a 21-day plan for people to come into it very slowly and gradually. I mean, just look at everything that we're dealing with. We're dealing with compromised genetic frameworks because of how our ancestors have lived for all of the last several hundreds and thousands of generations. So we have compromised genetic frameworks. We're born with compromised conditions in utero because our mothers had pregnancies, but the world was already starting to be altered. Then we have this conditioning and generational trauma.
Mm,
We have this social conditioning with the crazy social environment. We have a world which is on the brink of a threat.
mm.
Here we are with the responsibility of finding ourselves. And kudos that we're even trying.
Yeah,
But
true.
but this book says, because I grew up with that, right, Joanne? I grew up with the idea of becoming one. I grew up with the idea of dissolution. But to be quite frank, it took me 35 years before I actually found how do I actually start accepting it? And then over the last 5, 7, 10 years, when I felt like I stumbled upon this entire framework, I've been teaching it to people with remarkable results, that there's a way that you can keep tuning back and coming back to yourself with great ease. And it doesn't make your life rigid. Academic Ayurveda makes you feel like it's such a rigid system, it's almost impossible to follow.
Follow. Mm.
It takes away your freedom, but this is a way that brings freedom. It is that same comfort that a baby nursing from a mother's breast, that safe experience. That is how our experience in the world should be. And we need to find our way back. And it's very important to give systematic, loving steps for us to get back there.
That's really beautiful. And yes, simplifying, the way. And please describe some of the frameworks, the practices, and the rituals that we can use in our daily lives to bring more well-being. Mm,
Hmm. So, Joanne, I tell everybody that before you get down to what do I need to do, right? Like we're all like, where do I need to go do? Like, tell me, Nidhi, give me the 5 things that I should do. People ask me this all the time, and again, I do it, and it's fun. But I always say that before you start driving, you want to map out where are you going. People are so eager to let me go, go, go. I said, no, let's map out. Let's create that map for you and understand where are you driving to and the minute, right? John, if we know where we're driving, even if let's say you have to drive are you in London?
yes.
Let's say you're in London and you have to drive to Cotswold. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your map, right? You're going to see how much time it's going to take me, and you're going to look at all the turns. You're going to look at your entire journey, and that's going to make you feel so much better about driving versus like just getting in the car and not know where you're going and just taking every turn because your passenger driver is telling you and you don't know how long it is and how short it is. So we have to create a framework first, this map first. And I say you just need 3 principles on to get on this path before I give you systematic steps. And those three principles creates the framework. And I'm going to go through those principles because they're everything, Joanne.
Mm,
Then everything that I ask you to do is based on these 3 principles.
mm.
If I ask you to take a right turn, you're like, why am I taking this right turn? So because this is in the direction to Cotswold. Why am I taking a gas break? Because that's what you need to get to Cotswold. The minute you know where you're going, and you know why you're doing these rituals, they had more meaning. And then instead of rigid routines, they actually feel like rituals. So let's get into those 3 principles of the framework first. Disclaimer. The first one will take the longest. The second two are shorter. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the first one because it's important. But the idea of the first one is that in the universe, right, in the entire solar system, life exists on our planet, and only our planet as we know it is because the climate was right. We've explored Mars, we've explored other planets. Climate is wrong, life cannot exist. But for 4.5 billion years, we know life has existed on our planet just because climate was right. Single cell organisms by themselves without any scientific intervention, and we've evolved into full blown species. We're human beings, intellectual species today. So, this is a universal principle. When the climate is right, life will thrive, right? You cannot grow tomatoes in the North Pole. You can't because the climate is wrong. It's not working. You cannot grow oranges in a desert. The climate doesn't work. So, we know this principle. You and I both know it. We forget about it. Today, the climate is wrong outside, right? Global warming. And we're questioning, will this planet survive? Now, I want you to use this analogy, anybody who's listening to this, use this analogy to understand that there is a climate inside our body. I call it the inner climate. We have a climate inside our body. Our only responsibility is to get back to that optimum inner climate. Because when that climate is right, life with the life of our cells, the life of our microbiome, and that environment, when it's right, you will keep finding your way back to health. You may have a virus exposure, a bacteria exposure. The climate is right, your body knows how to deal with it. Your immune system, your nervous system, your digestive, your hormones, everything is thriving in this climate. Instead of fragmenting our approach to health and accessing each one independently, I go to a therapist for my mental health. I do this for my hormones. I do that for my digestive system. You don't need this fragmented approach. So what is that optimum inner climate, right? What we call homeostasis, which we only know through blood work and a physical exam. So there is an optimum inner climate. And that, Joanne, is warm and moist like our breath. And I want to go a little bit into it. And everything that Ayurveda talks about is bringing you back to this warm and moist. So our breath is warm and moist. Our blood, we are warm-blooded mammals. If you've ever gone for a blood exam and you've held a test tube, it's warm and moist. Our urine is warm and moist. Everything that comes out of the body is warm and moist. Our reproductive juices, very force of life, are warm and moist. In our body, microbiome, which was earlier called flora and fauna. So this flora and fauna is like flora and fauna outside. Where does flora and fauna exist? It exists in a weather, in beautiful spring, warm and moist. If it's too hot, there's parasites. So hot tropical, I grew up in India. The minute it's tropical, there's mosquitoes, there's bugs, it's all parasites, right? So perfect warm and moist. What kind of human beings do we like? We don't like hot-tempered. We don't like cold people. She was very cold. We know this intrinsic value of just warm people. What kind of comfort foods get us better? A chicken soup, a broth. I'm vegetarian, so I'll talk about broth and soups and dals, warm and moist. The world talks about this great macrobiotic revolution of eating small amounts of fermented food for your gut bacteria. What is fermentation? If you've ever fermented anything, it's warm and moist. It requires warmth and it creates moisture because it's an aerobic process. What type of a bedroom do we like to stay in, you and me? Nobody likes when your hand is too dry or if it's too sticky. You're like, no, you want it to be just moist. You don't like it cold, you don't like it warm, you just like it moist. The climate within our body, where the sun of our body is balanced with the moon of our body, which is literally also the climate which makes life thrive. All the belts around the equator where life thrives, it's all warm and moist, maximum life. Similarly, within our body, as is the macro, such as the micro, the climate that thrives is warm and moist. And I teach you a systematic method of how to eat, how to exercise, how to live, so that you can keep accessing and going back to this warm and moist. Even when we're triggered, anger is hot. When we feel triggered, anybody who's listening to this, I want you to explore what happens when you feel triggered. There's a heat either there's a stuck, you freeze and you disconnect, or you have this hot and dry response in your chest. But when you're feeling love, gratitude, compassion, a warm hug, it's so warm and moist. We gravitate towards warm and moist, but we need a systematic plan to come back from this deviation. We've had deviation today. People are too stressed, which is hot and dry. People are inflamed. Global warming outside is not different from inflammation inside. And inflammation has become too hot for people. Or people are just too sedentary, which is too sluggish. But they've lost their flow. They've lost their warm and moist, right? So that's the first principle. And everything I talk about in this book, how to cook, how to do every little thing, it can be brought to the most practical aspects of your life and rituals. And we'll talk about some of them, brings you to warm and moist. The second principle that in the framework, so basically the warm and moist becomes your North Star. Every interaction you have, everything you eat, you wanna put it through this lens. Is this warm and moist? Is this feeling warm and moist inside? Is this conversation feeling warm and moist? Does this reaction leave me triggered? How do I regulate to come back to warm and moist? You ask the same thing about your foods as well. The second principle is the principle of the circadian rhythms. We are diurnal mammals, which means we're not like bats, we're not like tigers, we're not like owls. We have daytime vision. We wake up with the sun and we set with the sun. And before Nikola Tesla invented electricity, we did not stay up and we did not use electricity in our homes. And it only happened, by the way, in the early 1900s. So about 150 years, not even more than that, which is also the same amount of time we've had chronic disease. Before that, we didn't have chronic disease. So if you learn to follow these patterns of the sun and the moon, these rhythms, and they're not just sun and moon, there's 6 distinct patterns in the day. And in those 6 distinct patterns, our biochemistry, the juices running through our body look very, very different. And when we can understand those rhythms, we can understand them intuitively just by looking outside. We know it's dewy outside, it's sluggish inside. It's hot outside, it's fiery and nice metabolism, it's high. It's windy outside, it's evening time. People are yawning, it's windy inside. So once you know what activities to do, what time of the day, you start resetting your rhythm. And then your bowel movements, your hormones, your sleep, wake patterns, everything is a rhythm, everything is a pattern. Everything starts to fall in place. So that is my second principle, is the principle of the circadian rhythms. And the third principle is just that everywhere in the world, there is growth, there is transformation, and there is decline. It's just the normal cycle of life.
It's like creation, preservation, and then dissolving, destruction. It's the same thing.
Exactly, the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. It's everywhere, and it's like, but it's beautiful that it's everywhere, right? Like cells actually come, they grow in size in the growth phase, and the minute they're fully grown, the mitochondria becomes active, and they're in their transformation phase. They're doing their metabolic work, the transformation work, and when their work is done, they will shrivel up, they will dry out, and they will atrophy, they will decline. And it's a fruit. You see the same pattern in a fruit. A fruit grows. It's on the tree, it's little, then it will grow, it'll ripen. It's in its transformation stage, it's fully ripened. But if you don't eat it, then on its other side is decline. It's the same thing in the seasons outside, right? Spring is a time of growth. Summer is when there's transformation, and where all the fruits, the flowers, all of that happens. And then in winter and autumn, things begin to decline and shrivel and winter and dry up. I want to say one last example. The same thing happens in our human bodies. We grow. There's a growth period till adolescence. The body is rapidly growing. You can eat a little food, but a teenager can grow so much. When you hit your adolescence, you get into the transformation period of your life. We as human beings are blessed. We have a really long youth period, very long ripe period from from the time we're 13, 14, all the way till, for women, into our 50s, and for men into our 60s. But on the other side of it is a drying up. Our body dries up and we shrivel, and we come to the autumn of our lives. And appreciating this not only gives us an understanding of the transience of life, but also tells you that this is just, we know how to interact with ourselves and with others in different phases of this life, how to consume food, how to feel, how to socially conduct ourselves. So it's such a beautiful appreciation. And yet knowing that the only place, right, even in relationships, by the way, you're growing, there's a growth, you meet a new friend, you'll go out together, there's growth, then you transform into a great friendship. And then because it's intangible, you have the option of not going into decline. If you continue to grow, the relationship will continue to transform. And then, but there's only one area that's devoid, that's free from this rule, which is the area of spiritual work, of self-development, because there is growth, there is transformation, there is endless transformation, and then there's dissolution. So this very beautifully, the principle number 3, while the first principle and the second one are very practical. They tell you what to do on a daily basis, what rituals, how to eat, all of that, breath practices, mind practices. The last principle reminds you that our great work, right, the body will decay, but our inner work is the only place where there is no decline.
Because the soul is eternal.
It's eternal. And you experience dissolution. After transformation and after endless transformation, you get into dissolution, not decline, not decay. And if you realize the real potential of human life is in that. So I explained that in great detail as well, and how to bring that into life and understanding of life around you. But you'll see, and I also run a program where I work with women on this, on identifying their deviation of their inner climate. And so we've gone, and I teach them, this work over 21 days. And we've seen that conditions that Western doctors couldn't heal, that Ayurvedic Panchakarma treatments couldn't heal, that years of, just figuring out and years of despair couldn't bring you back into that balance. Just coming back to this, the warm and moist, the rhythms of the universe outside. People are healed, fully healed. And not only are they healed, they're at ease. And when you're at ease, when you're in that space, in the warm and moist, in ease, there is no disease.
That's right.
All is to just come back to that ease. And it's easy to come back to that ease.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And it's really important, especially for women, because, women, our biorhythms really, really connect with the cosmic biorhythms, the earthly rhythms. We are so in tune with the moon. It's the beauty of the emotions, and that's why I think it's so important for us to have that balance and that alignment and that wholeness. And it's beautiful that the Ayurvedic principles that you teach gives us this, because that's what it's all about. Wholeness is health. Happiness is health. Wholeness is health. That's where we are, in that beautiful alkaline environment. Also helps, for the body, mind, and soul. It's just that union. It's just that balance. It's that alignment, isn't it?
Exactly, right? And that's such a beautiful way of saying it, the alkaline environment, right? The pH of 7 is where life thrives. We know that. Alkaline is a little bit too moist and acidic is too hot. Right in between is warm and moist. That exact pH where life can thrive is that warm and moist. And we want to keep coming back to it. So all the foods that Ayurveda recommends are warm and moist, cooked foods and spices and good fats. It's warm and moist. And you design your day according to the circadian rhythms, and you want to design your interactions so you keep them warm and moist, and you exercise so you don't get overly hot, and you don't stay lazy so you don't get overly sluggish, but you do the right amount of moderate exercise so you stay in that warm and moist. everything is, so stay in the warm
moderation,
and moist,
isn't it?
It's moderation. And you had that experience.
Yeah.
You can experience the moderation, because somebody can say, oh my God, it's like, I thought 3 hours of exercise was moderate. No, you see it when your body is becoming hot and dry, and you're losing too much fluids, and you're feeling your hair is dry and your eyes are dry and your throat is dry. You need a break. You need to bring back that moisture. And overly stressed and overly caffeinated and overly full of alcohol, that it dehydrates your body. And what is dehydrate? It is hot and dry. It's like the excessive solar experience, like the sun was shining inside your body, and so you want to come back to that warm and moist, and you don't want to be sluggish either. You don't want to be like sedentary and saying, I'm just going into this endless hibernation to preserve my body. You're not preserving your body, because you get stagnation. It's like a stream that does not flow stagnates. There'll be moss and marsh. And that's what we do when we're not active, but we don't want to be too active.
Yeah.
But we can understand there is a way that we can actually experience the warm and moist, that we can get back to this Ayurvedic rituals of oiling and oiling, oiling your hair, oiling your body, all these rituals which are designed to bring you back into that warm and moist. Even if somebody just starts oiling their body the first day, which is one of the rituals, which I teach one of the 21 days, even the first day you oil your body, you realize it brings such deep warmth and moisture, not only just on your skin, right? But you actually start feeling like that within because you have a surge of oxytocin, which is a neurotransmitter, which is your feel-good hormone, and you feel like this little oozy, cuddly, fuzzy feeling inside with that practice. So everything brings you back to that self within you and that warm and moist. So it's just such a beautiful science, and you don't have to do it all overnight. You can be, say, I'm far away from this. For years, I'm burnt out, which is again hot and dry because you're burnt out. And for years, I'm in chronic stress. And for years, I've had chemotherapy, and chemotherapy again is hot and dry. I'm inflamed, again hot and dry. So, but it doesn't matter where you are. There is a map. You're driving from London to Cotswold. There is a direction. You don't have to do it. You don't have to get to Cotswolds in like the next minute. You know the turns, you know the twists, you know the exits, you know when to stop to refuel. And I want to give you that journey. I don't want to tell you that you have to go to Cotswold and then leave you on your own.
Mm.
That's what most advice is. You have to get here. You have to be like this. You have to look like this body. And then, I want to tell you how it is. I want you to internalize it. I want you to be listening to music on the way and just enjoying the ride.
And then it becomes and just your everyday occurrence. It's just the way you live. It's just your daily routine of living. And to me as well, that is like the yogic middle path. It's the middle way. That's what yoga says, to live the middle way. Not too high, not too low. It's always the middle. It's always the balance. It's always the wholeness that brings your left and your right side, the masculine and feminine we all have within. Our darkness and our lightness. Our light goddess, our dark goddess. It's always integrating the negative and the positive sides of us within to have that perfect balance.
Absolutely, absolutely. So beautifully said. Yeah, it's the right side of our body and the left side. The right is the sun side of the body, and the left is the moon side of the body. And the place where the sun and the moon are aligned is warm and moist. And that's such happy, but you don't have to do it by yourself. I don't have to give you these ideas and you'd be like, oh, now how do I figure this out? You don't have to do it by yourself at all. Let me support you through the journey. You do it, break it down step by step by step. Let us find your way back to wholeness. And I understand how overwhelming it can feel to people when they just hear like, oh, how do I know moderation? I'm so far away from this.
Mm.
And so I like my ask is you don't have to do all of this by yourself. Let you don't have to find that moderation just on your own. Let us get a somatic experience. Let us teach you how to feel it in your bodies, how to bring it in your foods, how to bring it to your daily rituals. Let me give you a toolkit to regulate yourself emotionally so you can keep coming back to that warm and moist. No matter where you are, no matter how triggering something feels, you want tools so that you're not operating from that hot and dry space. You're not operating from that stuck and frozen place. You're operating flow. And it's possible for all of us to get back there.
Yes. And then after you've been doing it then it becomes so regular, so normal that you live it naturally.
Yes, it's effortless, right?
Yeah,
It's
so simple. It's part of it's your life. You're living it. It's like, me being a yoga. It's my yogic path. It's my everyday life.
Absolutely. And it becomes much easier to live like this than it is to actually follow anything prescriptively, because that feels so disconnected from who we are within that it feels like an effort. But once we really know, and you're learning through your knowing body, you're not even learning through your mind body. Most Ayurveda today is taught through the mind body academically. But when you learn through this knowing body, you come back to the wisdom when we talked about the 5 koshas and the 5 energy bodies and the 5 sheets. The minute you're learning through that place, it's like we know gravity, right? Like we don't have any effort saying, oh my God, I have to hold myself up, otherwise gravity is going to pull me down. We don't talk like that. We're okay holding our bags up and everything. Just we have this intrinsic relationship with gravity. We understand it. Similarly, we start having this relationship with the rhythms of the universe outside.
Yeah.
And then you constantly in awe and wonder. You're constantly looking out and just being connected to that because you understand, oh, it's morning. Look at there's so much dew outside. My body is sluggish inside. Oh, the sun is high and I'm feeling like this. And it's windy outside and birds are chirping and going back home. And my body wants to settle and go back home. And you start just being fascinated rather than being scared of the patterns of the universe. And when we learn through awe and wonder, we're learning through a different part of our brain. We're not learning through our prefrontal cortex. We're not learning through a front brain. And in learning through that back brain, we integrate, we learn through our subconscious mind. Our actions become effortless. And we really want to be learning through that rather than just learning through information and numbers and data all the time.
Yes, it's so important. That's that spiritual side. That's that intuitive side. It's our intuition. It's our being one, and walking barefoot in the, Mother Earth and listening to her and feeling that connection. That's what it is, isn't it? That I think we've lost that a lot. Yeah.
Basically, so true.
And
Absolutely.
thank you for bringing that back because you're helping so many people understand their natural rhythm, bringing it back to that beautiful balance. So
Yeah. I'm just a vessel, Joanna. I remind myself every day. I'm just you, me, all of us. We're just carriers of this wisdom, where it comes from somewhere where we ourselves cannot even access in the existent. Just if I thought of myself as Nidhi, I would not even be able to access it. But it comes from a deeper place.
that's
It
right.
comes from independent space, and then we're just hollow vessels to just be able to pass it to others. So I always that just meant the more hollow we are and the more we let go, the more can pass through.
That's beautiful. We're all channels, aren't we, for that beautiful wisdom from the Most High. And where can we read your beautiful book and where can we find your course, the 21-day course?
Absolutely. So my book is called Your Body Already Knows. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Watkins, on any bookshop. I think all the major websites carry it. Penguin Random House website will carry it. It's in bookstores as well. So it's in all the major bookstores and all the major book websites. You'll find my book, and people can buy it off there. And my website is called nidhi.me, nidhi.me. I also have an Instagram where I regularly talk about little ways of coming back to this wisdom. And my Instagram is my_Ayurvedic_life. If you don't find it, no problem. Look for Nidhi Pandya Ayurveda and you'll find me online. Just Google my name, Nidhi Pandya, and type Ayurveda along with it and you'll find me. And then I always tell people that, listen, don't worry, even if you can't find me, if you're meant to meet, it will happen. You'll find. I think the wisdom of this is always in the seeking and not in the finding. And the seeking is within the desire to know more. And then the answers come to your door. And rather than going out there and saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So you just sit with the seeking. But my website is this, and I have several programs. But I'll tell people, start with my book, start with my Instagram, see how my work resonates with you, and let's take it deeper.
Beautiful. Absolutely lovely. And I just want to say it has been a pleasure talking to you today. And thank you for your divine wisdom and inner knowing about Ayurveda and your lovely, way of showing and giving us to that. And I will go away knowing about warm and moist today. That is the beautiful place to be, So thank you for being on the Great Awakening Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanne. It's been a pleasure.
Lovely. Honestly, that was really wonderful.